Now presenting Mr. Mike Coyne, Governor's Hurricane Conference Board member representing the National Weather Service.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our next award is the Tropical Meteorology Award. It's presented to an individual or organization that has made outstanding or substantial contributions to the advancement and knowledge, application, or understanding of the hurricane forecasting and warning process in the state of Florida. Since 2004, Mr. Mike Boylan has been educating people about trends, model runs, and everything else tropical weather related through his website. He does not forecast, but his dedication and contributions to the citizens of Florida and providing tropical weather information in layman's terms, helping to explain what the forecast trends mean and how to follow all the extensive maps, charts, and graphs located on his website, Mike's weather page, aka SpaghettiModels.com. The 2021 Tropical Meteorology Award goes to Mike Boylan of Mike's weather page.
Just click on Mike's page, Drunk Donkey Nation. Well, there'll always be some haters, but they don't understand. Mike's got a friend and 100,000 more across the land. Well, if you want to know it first and you want to know it right and you want to have time to plan, Drunk Donkey Nation tells your friend, Mike, he's your man. And he's gonna tell you all about the wind and the rain. Gonna tell you if it's gonna be a storm or if it's gonna be a hurricane. Don't you worry about the news others try to hide. Click on Mike's page, Drunk Donkey Nationwide. Yeah, here on Mike's page, Drunk Donkey Nationwide.
All right. Good morning. Feels like Monday. It's not Monday. I know that. Feels like Monday. It's Tuesday. We're back home. Our wild and crazy week at Talladega is over. It was an amazing week as always. We even got on the Talladega Left Behind page. Does any of you all follow that? We did. We made it to the Talladega Left Behind page. If you don't know what that is, it's over on X. We had a pile of our empties this weekend. Bunch of Jim Beam, some Busch Light, some Spaghetti Model IPA. Not just me. But I'm glad to be back and talking tropics with you. Aaron, yeah, we're going to talk about Jamaica for sure. We got a lot of folks down in the Caribbean, so we're going to take it serious. Remember, just because I live in Florida, when I talk about a storm, it doesn't always mean that I am hyping a storm not coming to Florida, because there's other areas that get tropics. And I've figured it out. I think a lot of folks think, oh my God, Mike's talking about something that's not even coming. Well, because I got folks listening from everywhere, not just Florida. So no Longo today. He's extremely tired from our trip. He just loved people. And he is absolutely in heaven right now in his little banana bed. Soon to be occupied by Louie. But Louie is the OG. So good morning. I'm coming to you live from Oldsmar, Florida. This is the Daily Brew brought to you by our good friends at ABC. Know your zone. ABC. And appreciate all their support through the years. Gisela, good morning. Morning, Danielle. Good morning, Steve, Gulfport. Glad you missed us, Joy. We did one live from the infield, but That was just more of a give you up to date Thursday. I did a couple streaming 1 minute videos to keep you up to date, but things are getting a little interesting. We got Melissa brewing. The young is wore out, Marianne. He is. The old guy's still hanging. Kind of like this 52-year-old on the boulevard at 2:30 in the morning. Back up at 7. Got up at 4 yesterday and headed home from our trip, our shenanigans. Our car did really good, though. There it is, the Furman Power Equipment. We had Mike's weather page on the hood. We got 11th, almost 10th. The kid did awesome. And the car looked amazing out there on the track. That was on the Xfinity race. There's a picture of it qualifying. Did really well. Qualified mid-20s, which isn't bad for a smaller team operation there. It was pretty cool. There's our shenanigans there in the infield. Met a ton of people. Thank you, Angel. Rotunda West, Christina. Yeah, we just did a walk and talk. Daily Brew, it's fun, yep. Hey, Ian, boy, you got to be paid attention, buddy. What happened to the Bucks, Angel, baby? I'm wondering. Well, Baker did not have a good night. He did not have a good night. Let's do our screenshot. Well, we can keep talking. He just kind of, I mean, they rattled him, and, man, you know, Baker's our man. You get him rattled up. But we gave away a ton of Jim Beam swag at the Speedway. We met hundreds of folks that came by. It was a lot of fun. Met some great crew, that's for sure. We had storms come through Saturday night. Now, I posted a bunch about this storms. I walked up and down Talladega Boulevard Saturday night. Everybody I mentioned this to looked at me like, huh? I'm like, no, we got bad storms coming about 4 or 5 in the morning. Well, it looked like a war zone out there. I did a video and put it on X or TikTok. By the way, TikTok, I can't read your comments this morning. Hopefully I'm leaving live. But every tent in the Speedway was pretty much mangled. I mean, a third of them maybe survived. It was crazy. There was stuff flying in the air. Poor people tent camping had to like escape to their vehicle because it was so bad and it was windy. I mean, holy cow! But this is the stage, one of the stages that blew over. That was Saturday night. Crazy. But there we got Melissa soon. So let's do our screenshot, Louis. Let's look over here. No, I'm not at that Oktoberfest. We do have an Oktoberfest this weekend coming up here at Tampa Bay Downs. I'll probably be going to that. So it's up in Tampa Bay Downs, put on by the Upper Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce. But this is what we got. So it's 100% right now. This little blob called Invest 98. By the way, I'm not a real meteorologist. I made that clear a bazillion times. But in case you're new, I'm just a meteorologist, armchair quarterback, not degreed in meteorology, self-taught weather person. Learning something new every day. Morning, Jerry Coe. Saw your post a couple times. Yeah, so let's talk about this. We're going to say hi towards the end, but we got a lot of people getting a little worried, which, you know, we should, especially if you're in that Caribbean. Margie, our dog is trained. He can do anything, our dog. He can even wear, come here. He can even wear Weather in a Nutshell. Watch this. This is my Weather in a Nutshell hat. Put it on, buddy. Just stay right there. Look. There we go. We'll just here. Louis, look at Weather in a Nutshell with Louis. I want to be able to see his eyeballs. There's one. Look at that. Look over here. All right, so 100%. They're waiting on recon to go out there. Hurricane hunters are heading out there. It's already a tropical storm. It's got the winds. It's just waiting on confirmation of a circulation now. This was going to get sneaky because it's over the hottest water that we've had all season, believe it or not, and going to sit and meander for days, it looks like, and that could be big trouble for rains for the Caribbean especially. But, you know, it's going to be interesting, a couple days of tracking. You know, obviously most people watching us are from Florida and the continental U.S. I used to say U.S. all the time, and folks in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands would get mad. They'd be like, hey, what about us? So now I make sure to put CONUS, continental U.S., out of fairness to everybody. So, interesting. We've been talking about this hot spot for weeks, it seems like. I can't believe it. I'll be on Fox Weather today, by the way, 1:15 p.m. Eastern, okay, with Bob. 1:15 p.m. Eastern. Last week's segment, I even mentioned, we're probably going to be talking about the tropics. That was 6 days ago. I'll also be on Tom and Dan. If you watch Tom and Dan on Twitch and YouTube, I'll be streaming live there, I think, at 11 this morning, and then they'll replay it in old Orlando area tonight on the radio. So, hey, a small little hat. That would be interesting. Anybody know any RV mobile mechanics that would like to make some money? I want to get some new captain chairs in my camper. The couple years that Thor made leather in our RVs, it all flakes off. I've already had the dinette redone, but it's like it rains flakes of leather, and the captain chairs are bad. So reach out Mike's Weather Page Gmail, and I'll gladly pay you. I'm not looking for free, but basically somebody who's experienced that does RV stuff that can swap out a couple of chairs for me. Rather keep it in the MWP family, for sure. All right, here's what it looks like in the big scale. Here's the overall picture. There's our system. We got a high pressure to the north right now. That's the big question mark, is how long it just stays down here before our front line comes in, pushes this high out of the way, and lifts our system to the north-northeast. So definitely a couple scenarios out there. Historically, it would be more of the latter. South Florida would be, if I lived there, I would be keeping one eye on it. You know, don't ignore it for sure. And especially the East Coast. You know, we had Sandy this time of year. We get a front comes down and then a blocking high, then a front comes down, and things can get wiggly. So we definitely need to watch this. I don't have to remind you that in 2022 we had Hurricane Nicole in November that hit the east coast of Florida there. So tropics can happen this late in the season, and the water temperatures are still very warm. If you look at the anomaly maps here on the Tropical Tidbits, here you can see that when you look at a 30-year average, white is usually the norm, and this is all the hurricanes that we've had in the Atlantic has had a lot of upwelling these past couple weeks, months. And that brings up cooler water from below the surface, and it never has a chance to heat back up. Well, the waters in the Caribbean, and believe it or not, the Gulf, you know, you might think it's cold. It is cold, but it's warmer than normal. And we've had hurricanes this time of year in the past, so we have warmer than normal waters. We don't say it can't happen. And, you know, Aaron, one of the things I learned this year was Aaron, I think Gabrielle, or one of those ones, I can't remember, but Aaron for sure was over 82 degrees water when it went from a tropical storm to a Cat 5. So once you hit that 80-degree water mark, you know, things can happen. But the water temperature is still fairly warm out there. So there's that. Here's what it looks like really bubbling away down there. It looks like it's a little displaced. There is some wind shear. You can see it. But overall, the environment isn't that negative for development. Lower level circulations is out racing it a little bit. Mid levels on the actually, we can look at that kind of stuff here. I assume it is. I didn't even really look today, but I'm pretty sure it's lower level wind shear. But you can see right where it's at. There you go. Lower level winds spinning away. You can see these strong winds here that are driving it towards the west, and then we have mid level winds coming in the other direction. But it's got 700. There's 700,000. Not too far off, actually. 500 is probably a little off a little bit. It is. But so you can see the mid-levels a little bit to the east of the lower level. But it's getting there. It's definitely got what I think low-level circulation. But I think they're waiting on hurricane owners to confirm it. So they're on their way out there today. Talk about it. Here's another look at it. You can see the lower-level clouds a little bit west of that big blob, and then, you know, that's expected to slow down and everything. So let's look at the latest models here. Tropical Tidbits. There you go. What is that mess? What in the shenanigans are we looking at here? Keisha, hey, down there in Jamaica. You're gonna be watching this, Ian, in Jamaica, and down there in Jamaica. Good morning, Teresa. Winter Haven. Good morning. I hope you all booked our end of the year hurricane party. Neighbors helping neighbors. December 5th. I got details on the website and Facebook. All right, so this spaghetti model mess. Well, one thing about spaghetti models, look at the time frames, okay? These are hours from now, right now. This is right now where it's at, right there. These are hours away. So 48 hours. So look at some of these. 120 hours. And the TVCN is a consensus model. So it could take 5 days to get to right here. Could. That's a big question mark. Every update says higher than usual uncertainty. Well, I've never heard them say it's certain. Everything's always uncertain. Everybody's a model reader. We're all model readers. But the important thing is there is a blocking pattern to the north, and GFS thinks it's going to race out of here, but the majority of them are just chilling out. And that could be big problems for Hispaniola and Jamaica and even the Caymans, as this thing could drift a little bit to the west. But these are your latest 12Z spaghetti models. 12Z comes out around 9 a.m. Next batch of spaghetti models come out at 3 p.m. Every 6 hours they come out. By 3 p.m., it's going to be Melissa any minute. They might update it at 11 because they have to issue PTCs, potential tropical cyclone, if it's not Melissa, because we're within, getting close to possible land impacts here in the Caribbean. Strength-wise, pretty much all the models are expecting some sort of development down the road as it just meanders, some a little quicker than others, but overall trend is possible major hurricane, possibly. A couple of them are saying major hurricane, yes. Cat 2 here at the end. This is 5 days away. This is 6 days away, 7 days away. So we could be watching this thing all week long. And I would like to thank Melissa for waiting so that I could enjoy Talladega before things get too active. Haiti, Chastity, we're talking about it. The big problem for you all is going to be rain in the short term. Renee worried about Louisiana. I think that's very unlikely this thing gets into the Gulf. That far into the Gulf. The only ones in the continental U.S. would be the Florida Peninsula and eventually the East Coast as this thing tries to hug a little bit. Now, let's talk about that possibility. We're at the point, there's zero worries. Anybody in the states, maybe I should just say states instead of CONUS. Does that make more sense? Crystal, what's blurry? The video? It'll come back. It goes through cycles. All right, so what the heck's all this mess? Have you noticed everybody's sharing ensembles now? And then everybody's telling you what they're doing. Turks and Caicos. Heck yeah, Biz. We're talking about that. Look at that. So, Mr. Ball, thank you. I don't know if that's your real name or not. Tell me if that's your real name or not. I see your 5-year, 3-year little thing. So thank you for following. So what the heck are these models here? These tell you a lot, but they also are confusing. Used them a little bit too much this year, I think, including myself. I think we forgot that operational models are a little bit more important sometimes as you lose a lot of reality with spaghetti models. Barrel last year had spaghetti models from Mexico to the upper Gulf. But common sense was it was going to turn to the north, and it did. But the spaghetti models made it appear that there was a chance it wasn't, and that skewed sometimes the operational run a little bit. So, but these are telling you a lot. Anything in the red's a hurricane. Anything in the pink is possible major hurricane. So big stuff to watch in that Caribbean. This thing, if rapid intensification is real, it can happen. It happens all the time. This thing meanders for several days in the Caribbean. There's a very good chance this is going to turn into a hurricane, possibly major hurricane. And I don't know how to tell you the impacts of a major hurricane. Okay, timing would be 3-4 days from now that it could be really ramping up close to Jamaica, Haiti, yes, Dominican Republic. So the flow, though, notice the flow. If you just kind of casually look at this, I know I explained ensembles to you before, but figure there's 30 people, 50 people in a room. Everybody's given their own ideas of what the storm's going to do. And so every one of those lines is a different opinion based on possibilities like, hey, the high pressure coming in is a little strong. The high pressure is a little weak. Wind shear is a little less. Wind chill's, so it puts all these simulations together. And I was talking to a NASCAR simulations engineer they do the same thing in racing. They'll simulate a 188 lap race at Talladega, cloud cover in 1 and 2, cloud cover in 3 and 4, no cloud cover, all cloud cover. Winds on the back stretch, winds on the front stretch, humidity going up, humidity going down. A shim here, a shim there. Shims are little ride height adjusters. Change a track bar here, track bar there. It puts all this together and it simulates what's going to be the fastest run possible with these conditions. So every one of these little simulations is a possibility if the weather changes a little bit down the road. And the weather changes so much down the road, you just don't know. I'll never forget tracking Sandy. We had GFS one way, Euro the other way. We had one going out to sea. It's important to look at this. And I don't want to forget, but the UK and the GraphCast, everybody's jumped on the Google bandwagon. Everybody jumps on bandwagons, and they forget the core values of storm tracking and looking at things and forgetting, but the GraphCast, Google's not even showing development of this system, and it's going to be Melissa today. So even the almighty Google map that everybody's jumping on board with is saying nothing in the UK. So you look at everything, and you just kind of put it out there. And this has been, if you look back to last week, the historical left or northeast turn that you see in October is what is kind of showing, okay? Cold fronts come down, cold fronts lift, cold fronts open the door, and we get a curve. So, if you're in Florida, or, yes, I'm cautiously watching. East Coast, yes, because, we know Sandy turned a little bit. Now notice, your Google ensembles very much agree this has nothing to do with the states. The Euro's got, South Florida close and a couple of them, curving here. There's a lot of them not curving, though, too. And, of course, we got Bermuda. Not forgetting about Bermuda. Never forget about Bermuda. The GFS has a couple outliers, but then they have a lot down here, too. So, the GFS has constantly been thinking two schools of thinking that or that, later. Euro AI, it's been kind of teasing South Florida and teasing this, but, the general trends. So the trends are what we're looking at there. But that's tough because it's going to sit down there for 5 days. And any little turn more west can definitely bring impacts farther west. But we're going to look at all the models here. I really want to break it all down. What's causing this stall? What's coming that might lift it and turn it? We know cold fronts are coming. It's only Tuesday. There's a lot of talk about the Halloween cold front. So it could have a temporary little, lift and a turn and a lift. One of the tools which I really like on my site is Berg guidance and Tang guidance. These guys right here. These are awesome, awesome links. So what you can see here, look at Tang guidance first off, Brian Tang. And if you look at the consensus models, we can look at trends, okay? The darkest line is the most recent, and this is 9 times out of 10 when we get an NHC cone at 11 or 5 tonight, your cone is going to do this. And then it'll probably really open up to like that. Boy, I almost drew something I didn't want to draw there, so I got to start over again. We put, 5-day and then 3-day. Can't win. But the trend is that. And they're all slowing down. They're all going that direction. So that's kind of what you got to look at. Not a big change in the last 6 runs. We don't have an official track yet because we haven't had official track yet. But what's kind of cool with this map, you can look at trends of the Euro. So none of this is organized yet. There's the Canadian. The Canadian is trending, first it was that, then it was that, then it was that. Now it's like that. So it's trending more to the east on the Canadian. It's just fun to look at these things and kind of get the idea of what is. Why I hate this market thing. GFS. Very consistent over Hispaniola. There's the GFS. It's not backing down. Maybe a little bit to the west before the turn. But there you go. That's the last 6 runs of the GFS. The higher resolution hurricane models, I don't believe, are very good indicators of tracking. Last year they were not. This year they are definitely not. So I'm not going to show them. Personal preference. But we are going to look at them as far as intensity goes. Okay, for that. So let's look at that. Let's go to tropical tidbits and look at possibilities. Let's look at all the main runs first. Okay, this is the Euro. Euro's going 996, 990. Developing system, getting close to Jamaica. Yes, and you'll start to feel effects as early as tomorrow with the rains. But if it develops, it's going to be sitting there Thursday, Friday, right there between the gap and possibly developing. As a hurricane through the weekend, so I know we got a lot of folks watching down there. Now here's what the Euro, let me zoom in on this a little bit more. Because the Euro usually reads upper level winds better than anybody. So saved by grace, thank you. What's up, Ryan Anderson? So, all right, so this is what's happening. This is Friday. Look at that high pressure. Anytime you get a high pressure to the north, there's really nowhere to go. It can't go anywhere. It's waiting on a front. Now, high pressures are tricky because they do spin winds this direction, so it could allow this west movement eventually before it finds a gap and turns. This is kind of what the Euro is showing. Historically, if you look at the Euro or the tracks from the National Hurricane Center over the last since 1944 to 2020, the majority of your systems have been there, and that's just the history. But anyway, that's kind of makes sense. This is the Euro, and it develops it, and it just hangs out. This would be terrible rain for somebody wherever this thing plops that moisture, and it stops. There's a 6Z. Overnight run, it's a little bit to the west. And then it lifts up that cold front coming down. And it goes right over the Bahamas there. And timing there would be, holy cow, it'd be next week. This would be next Wednesday. Catastrophic flooding is going to be an impact for someone down there. It could be Jamaica, it could be the Caymans, it could be Cuba, it could be Hispaniola. If you get 4 or 5 days of rains and there's all that endless ocean heat content, and then it pulls out of here. We're going to look down the road. No, it doesn't even go to the East Coast there. So let's go Eastern Coast here because I want to include everybody here. This is the Euro, and it goes away, which makes sense. But we're going to keep an eye on that. Canadian model, which isn't too bad, not too good, but not bad. It's consistent. Showing you basically the same idea. It's going to meander around through Monday. This is Monday. A little bit farther to the west, there's the Caymans. It's going to plop around down here all week. Here's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Then it gets out of here. So it's kind of following the Euro track. Icon is not a bad model sometimes. And it meanders through Saturday, develops it pretty strong. Then it kind of doesn't know what to do. And, so the big stress with even, meteorologists that I follow, when you get a meandering system down there, the front's a little weaker, a little stronger. It all depends on where it plops out. But you can see that northeast turn is eventually likely coming. And, if you're worried about Florida, it pretty much is how west does it go before it does that turn. But let's look at intensity models, because these are usually really good with figuring out what the heck the storms are going to do. So 982 Thursday, there's Hispaniola. That's already a hurricane. It crosses and this meanders around. So obviously it loses its strength over the high mountains. That's the track it's going to take. This would be a decent hurricane. Haas A is showing not too much, actually. Weak hurricane, weak tropical storm. So that's good news. Haas B, same. Doesn't really, this just meanders it around. I mean, it's really hard to see, I know, but there's really nothing there. I was surprised. HMON showing across really nothing. Hurricane. Weak hurricane. Oh, did it really gets going. Oof. There's Jamaica. So by the end of the run here, it shows Sunday morning definitely getting developed. So that's that. There's some wind shear down there and other stuff. Another thing I want to look at here, I want to show you a couple things. The KMA, I got to show you this one just because the KMA in the past, I've always used it. Definitely been wrong as much as it's been right, but it does show, I was just a little surprised today, but a little more west movement, and then it obviously pulls it up. So this is basically just to show you if you're worried about things in Florida, it's how far west does this thing go in the next several days. This would be Sunday before it turns, and it would be like Wednesday, Thursday next week. Not a very reliable. Nobody's going to share the KMA, but if you follow me long enough to know the KMA like a blind squirrel. Now the UK, which is ironically usually a pretty darn good model, isn't showing any development, and I thought that was crazy. So the UK is always pretty darn good. And you can see it south of Jamaica all the way through Friday. And the GraphCast, which is the one of the Google ones, shows you a week. So not a guarantee this thing will become anything strong, but chances are it will with all that ocean heat content down there. So there's that. I'm going to look at steering currents, just kind of put that out there, what the heck's going on with the steering currents. I think I'm going to have to reset here. So let's go to aircraft recon. They're not flying yet. They are later today. All right, let's show you the upper level patterns. What's causing this thing to plop down there? And basically, we have this so far south that it's not feeling the effects of the current front. And this pattern, actually, let's go to EPS mode because it's a little more blend. So basically, it doesn't have anything to pull it northward because it's too far to the south. Here it is on the Euro 500 millibar on Monday of next week. And here's that Halloween cold front coming that might dip far enough to the south to pull this north and escape. And that's kind of what it's going to be waiting on. See? Pulls it north. That's 500 millibar, but you can see what I'm talking about. And that's the current idea. The Euro AI has been terrible this year, in my opinion. But But we basically have this thing just plop down here with high pressure and nowhere to go for a few days. So that was a lot of words to say when no one knows. We got history, we got water temperatures, we got ocean heat content, we got some wind shear, yes. Let's look at the wind shear actually on some of these maps. I hate looking at wind shear. It's always, I mean, heck, look at the MJO. We including me, we talk about the MJO all year long, and it's in a very suppressed phase right now, and we're going to see possible major hurricane. So watching things in real time, it seems like the winter. So Project Eagle did pretty good last year. Now here's the difficult thing with looking at ensembles. Look at Project Eagle, and then we have that. So that really makes sense. Now these eventually will turn, more than likely, but the GFS has it turning earlier, and some of them have it turning later. That's an experimental model from NOAA. There's your Google DeepMind. These are very, very, very strong hurricanes, by the way, in the Caribbean. So Jamaica, definitely need to spread the word down there that there's a potential of a major hurricane a couple days. These are pressure readings. Hours, different ensemble members. So it looks like Google has 49. Oh, that's 50. It's 50. I've always wondered how many ensemble members that Google had, and they have 50 members. So, but look at these pressure readings: 894, 911, 914, 937. All possible major hurricane on the Google AI ensembles, and that obviously Bermuda's right there too. We're so focused on what's going on down here, we can't forget our friends in Bermuda. Now that would be like past Halloween, possibly. If we look at timing for y'all, let's take a look real quick, and then I'm going to go back to that because I know we have a lot of people in Bermuda that watch. If it did go to Bermuda, it's slowing down. All right, so here's the GFS. Missing you, but it would be Wednesday of next week. Euro, if it turned your way, would be like more Halloween. Remember, GFS here, Euro here, you're in, so middle of next week to the end of next week. Not this week, next week. You can see this thing getting awfully close to you. Here's Canadian on Wednesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for Bermuda next week. Timing is everything. All right, so let's look back at some more models here. We got the Euro AI. Here's the main spaghetti models again. These just came out. Notice we got two schools of thinking here, and then we get a little slowdown, and then eventually maybe going back that direction. What else we got cool to show here? I wanted to look at, obviously, some wind shear. So let's look at the wind shear forecasts. I don't think it works on this one here. It never does. I need to let Ryan know that. You have to go Atlantic. Or how about nowhere? Well, that ain't good. Tropical. We got north, wind shear not working on any of them. 12Z's not working either. Well, that's not good. So it doesn't even want to talk about wind shear. So let's look at GFS wind shear. Look here. Let's look at Caribbean. And let's look at actual wind shear mean here. So there's a lot of wind shear down there now. Going to be some. But here's Thursday, the 23rd. So it starts to lighten up a little bit. Definitely more favorable for development on Thursday, Friday. 10, 12, 15. Green is 20 knots of wind shear. Wind shear prevents tall thunderstorms. Helps break up circulation. So it'll be, decent anomaly here will be below normal. Being that we're in a La Nina year, this area should have less wind shear than normal years. And if you look at the anomaly mean is white, and then green, we start getting into very light wind shear. So the wind shear this time of year is very low, 10 to 12 knots below historical what you see this time of year. So it's definitely going to have a window, which is obviously why some of these models are predicting a major hurricane. Look at this map. I've never seen this one. TC Ocean Heat. Oh, look at this one. Look at that. Learned something new. Holy moly. This is our tropical heat potential map. Wow. Didn't even know he had it on his page. Very warm. If you look at historical, Brian McNulty's site, if we look at the years dating back to 13, comparing the ocean heat content, we are above last year and above 23. But we didn't have systems. The reason we're above is Helene and Milton took all that heat last year out of the Gulf, and but we're above normal heat potential. That's the Gulf. Caribbean. Why did I say the Gulf? It's probably not going to the Gulf. That was not a forecast. Here we go. This is where we're at. This is the Caribbean. And obviously, Helene and Milton didn't use the Caribbean that much last year. So that water temperatures. But it's the third highest since 13. Ocean heat content here. Red's where we're at today. So how you like that? All right. So what else can we look at? So it's bubbling away. We got models. We got an idea of timing. All that should have been covered and answered. If you're cruising, yes, I'd be very worried about it because of the water. And if you're docking anywhere, I mean, that's just common sense at this point. You got a developing possible hurricane in the Caribbean. You're going to have waves. That's just the way it goes. That's just the wave it goes. Here's your short range 90 hours showing you the big areas with the waves. But if we go to actual animation here showing you long range on a developing system, you can see the waves just meandering before this thing crosses over. There they really start getting big there. So this is based on the Euro going a little bit to the west, but there's your idea as the big stuff. These are not consistent 55 foot, but it gives you an idea. This will be next Tuesday, next week. The Euro has this thing developing, and eventually it's going to cross off to the north. So, we haven't talked about the East Coast yet, but the East Coast, let's look at some of these ensembles for the East Coast now. Once this thing passes, potentially, and heads off to the northeast, then we got to start worrying about East Coast impacts. So let's zoom in a little bit more on the East Coast U.S. and here's some of these ensembles. Now, this is where ensembles get tricky because there's really not a lot of operational runs showing, but whenever I see that, it's telling you, it's thinking potential high pressure not being that strong of a front, and then it might turn a little bit. So, words like I posted yesterday, words like just be aware or don't forget about the storms out there. There's zero concern, zero canceling anything. Timing, if it were to pull up here and turn, this is the Halloween morning. If it were to come close to South Florida, it would be the 28th, 29th at the earliest, maybe. This is the 28th. So it's still a week away. So much can happen in a week. You can't really make a confident prediction based on something that's a week away before it figures out what it's going to do. So you just kind of have to watch trends. Look at history. Look at cold fronts coming down. There is a cold front coming down. on the Halloween week. Pretty big one actually. Look at the actually let's look at the precipitation. You can really see it coming down. Here's the 27th. That's a couple weird little things right there. I don't know what the heck's going on there. What the hell's that? Monday. Ooh, little low pressure coming out of the Gulf. This next Monday. Interesting. Little cutoff low coming down. Could be some stormy weather. Uh-oh. This is next week. This is the weekend. This is Saturday. Got a little cutoff low coming down. Where did that come from? Right there. See that? This weekend? See a little cutoff low? And then another one coming down. Wow. That's that front that's bringing the cool weather down for Halloween. But that could be storms. We could have storms over the weekend, and then midweek here as that secondary front comes down. Holy cow. Didn't even pay attention to what's going on front-wise. I bet you they're talking about it on the Storm Prediction Center. A little bit. Here's Thursday, the midweek one, but then if you look at day 4, day 8. Yeah, talk about Saturday, Sunday. Thunderstorms, severe potential. I do have this map here. I don't think I've used it much. SIP severe. This is more springtime map, but this one looks ahead areas to watch for potential storms. Not really seen anything over the weekend, but just something to think about. So, bottom line, it's going to hover for a few days. It's having a hard time figuring out where it wants to go. It's waiting on a cold front to lift it and turn it. How far west it goes will determine potential impacts down the road. We talked about the East Coast down the road. Here's the Euro. Let's look at the GFS. Not saying zero chance at all, but you're just saying, hey, GFS only has 1 or 2. GFS definitely has been off to the east more than everybody else. Euro, AI, pretty much that way. So, yeah, I think the messaging is pretty good. Oh, we got somebody being banned over there. Imagine that. Got nothing better to do than stir up trouble. A non-meteorologist talking weather. Halloween thunderstorms, Ryan. Yeah, hey, what's up, Jennifer? Good to see you over there on Facebook. Justin, I think there's a good reason to keep your eye on the Keys. Yes, history. Yeah, I would definitely keep an eye on it for sure. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you following, buddy. Rain in sight for Texas, Jamie. Yeah, these cold fronts for sure. These fronts are going to bring rain. There's no doubt. If this Euro, let's see. I mean, just curious if you want to see the rain, but here's a little bit of rain there over the weekend. See it right there? That's that first blob. Now keep your eye on the second one. So a little bit of eastern Texas as it dips way south, but it's really timing. We've seen this a lot. So yeah, Texas has a chance for decent rain over the weekend, and then midweek as our big front comes into play. I'm not going to talk about the big front and temperatures yet because we got to talk about something tomorrow. But you know what's interesting with this Euro is it's a little bit more west than than others. Try to get a good map here. Which one do I want to look at? I don't know. Oh, NAC is going to initiate advisories at 11. Imagine that. Tropical Storm Melissa at 11. Oh, God. Let's see here. Oh, man, I like this one, but I wish I could go a little farther south. Let's see here. Yeah, this might be good. So this would count. We don't have rain on this one, though. Well, this might show what I'm trying to do. So basically, there's our possible Melissa getting pretty close there next Wednesday, the 29th. But you can see this front coming into play that usually lifts our systems up. See the front? This is the 28th. That would allow our system to turn. This comes in a little slower. Could turn later. So if you're wondering what makes this thing want to pull to the north, turn. When you have a strong high pressure system across the Atlantic, which we did not have this season, typically when you have a strong high pressure system, the Bermuda High is very blocking, and systems just kind of go this direction because there's nothing to weaken this Bermuda High. This year in August, we had our cold front come down, and that weakened our Bermuda High, and we had thus all these storms curving, and this front lingered August and September. I posted so much about it, asking, other weather opinions, and they all agreed that it was very rare to see the cold front sticking for months. So for this system, we have a high pressure from here because in the wintertime, you get a lot of this. You get a low, you get a front, and then you get a high build back in, and then you get another low coming in. Lows are fronts, basically. So right now, we got a big old high that's just sitting there, and this thing's just got nowhere to go. Generally, the high pressure winds are clockwise, so they help push the system off to the west. It takes a big front to take this high and slide it this direction, and we do have a Halloween front coming down. So if our system is somewhere down here, it's going to ride somewhere as this front comes through. And front comes in later, that's when you could have that happen. Now, if the front's weak, let's say it does this, that front disappears, and then we get a high pressure build back in. This is exactly what happened with Sandy. We had models that it was going to do that. We had models that it was going to do that because it didn't know how that high was going to react. So this time of year is different because we have rotating high pressure systems that we don't have in the summertime. So it's all timing, and that's why we have a lot of Caribbean systems do this, because they eventually get lifted and pulled and turn, and then they accelerate because guess what? The same clockwise flow around this high pressure now is steering our system off that direction. So high pressures are steering mechanisms for our systems a lot. So right now it's just got a block. It's like a block. Oh God, I just did a football reference. Any Bucks fans out there? Oh, such a terrible game. I got up at 4 a.m. I was so excited to come home, and they were bad. Terrible. Still a lot of wind shear down there. Let's see, steering map. There's our big old high pressure kind of just blocking our system. Eventually drifting a little bit. So the cone will be interesting. Let me show you what I think the cone is going to look like. Let's do this. And I'm going to keep it clean. They always show the day 4 and 5 cone. So I think the day 4 or 5 cone is going to be like that. I think it's going to be the most epic 5-day cone we've ever seen. Put it to you that way. I bet it's going to be like the 5-day cone here with like a 3-day cone there. It's going to be epic. It's going to be small. I got to put off my time with Dan now until 11:30 because I got to update the website. So let me text Dan here real quick. Y'all can watch Tom and Dan on YouTube and Twitch. And then I'm on Fox Weather at 1:15 today, Eastern. Adam, yeah, they did okay. You know what, though? They rattled. My boy Baker got a little rattled, I think, and he was throwing passes. He was missing a lot of passes. Oh, you're getting married, Caitlin. Well, that's awesome. Chances are very low for St. Augustine. Might be some wins. But so I thought of a funny analogy I was going to put out yesterday. People love for anybody to go out on a limb, and I've learned you can't go out on a limb when you don't have a tree. There's no foundation to go out on a limb right now. Does that make sense? I think the northeast curve is inevitable in the short term. I think any drift to the west puts, obviously, Bahamas, South Florida watching a little bit more. Not a forecast, but just history. You know, we get a high pressure to the north. It might drift a little bit more west than some of these models are predicting. Hurricane hunters will be sampling how strong that high pressure is. Stronger high pressures will allow a little bit more motion to the west. Before we get any opening or gaps. So Evans is out, Daniel. Yep, we got Melissa, Crystal, 11 o'clock. Motion in the ocean, Natalie. Mike Soul, yeah, they did their homework, man. And we got a terrible weakness in the secondary in the Bucks. Like these teams are just eating us up. Deborah's up in Tallahassee. Cool. Good. Chrissy's got a new avatar. What's that? Thank you, Terry. Cancun. Awesome. Thanks for saying hey from Cancun, Terry. Jared, I would seriously be watching this drifting west towards the Caymans. It would be devastating rainfall regardless of impacts. The good news is right now some of the higher resolution models aren't showing a very strong system, so this will be the tricky part. I tend to believe the H-Wharf and H-Mon and Haas models for intensity purposes. Usually the GFS and Euro underdo intensity, which is interesting because they're kind of showing a little stronger. GFS is showing a 969 hurricane south of Hispaniola here on Thursday. That's a strong hurricane. Not major, maybe not major quite yet. The Euro is showing a little farther west and east, or west and east, a little farther west. No, 60 it's not, though. There's 978, though, so that's definitely... and then overnight was a little bit farther to the west. 968. 949. Holy cow, it's really intensifying it. Bad for the Bahamas on the Euro. 950. That's a possible major hurricane over the Bahamas later next week. So, again, if you're cruising, you definitely... This is a big thing to watch. Ships will not go to your destinations when there's a hurricane blocking your path. So anybody cruising, this weekend thinking they're going to the Bahamas, there's a good chance things are going to get all messed up as this thing approaches Thursday right here. So your Canadian's a lot faster. This is next Tuesday. Still decent signature there. Probably sheared a little bit from the frontal line that came down. There's your front line there, kind of merging with it. Canadian is showing a little bit more of the East Coast. Now, granted, it's not a very reliable model, but showing you how it could hook back a little bit. And this would be Halloween. Y'all know Sandy too well. So that's kind of why I mentioned we need to watch this casually on the East Coast for any potential turn. And it's really interesting to look at the euro and seeing this front coming down. Here's that front. That's a powerful front. This is middle of next week. That's a pretty big dip in the jet stream. And it picks up our system and slides it away. This would be Halloween. All right, enough talking. All right, so hey, listen, y'all. What an ensemble show. Kyle, where you been? Kyle. We've been doing it all morning. All right. Bobby, yep, we got Melissa. I think it's going to be the most epic cone ever. I think it's just going to be a big circle. I think the 5-day cone is going to be a big circle. You need definitely be paying attention. All right. Well, hey, thank you, Daniel, for the support. It's hot. There's definitely going to be Caribbean heat. I can tell you that. And helps. It tells you a couple things. During Ian, during Irma, It's going to be 86 Saturday here in Tampa. You could argue it's there. Or not. Ooh, my tummy's growling. Oof. Anyway.